I'm ready, Chillify. My mother, Lin Shumei, ran a beauty clinic specializing in male intimate enhancements. Her technique was so refined, so remarkably effective that everyone raved about it. Wealthy women would flock to her, bringing their gigolos in tow. Yet my mother was barely literate, never even touching a surgical scalpel. The true secret to her success lay in the pearls she used for the procedure's strange, fleshy orbs with an unsettling odor and an unknown origin. My mother dropped out of elementary school, yet somehow opened a thriving beauty clinic. A woman who could barely read or write was the lead surgeon, specializing in male intimate procedures. Each surgery cost 100,000 yuan, and she strictly limited herself to only 10 cases a month, no more, no less. Today was the last appointment of the month. When Mrs. Wang arrived with her latest gigolo, Jay, my mother was still asleep. She rubbed her eyes, let out a wide yawn, and grumbled, "Why are you so early? Our appointment isn't for a while." Mrs. Wang's face flushed, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Oh, Amy, who can blame me? Your skills are simply too good. The more I think about it, the less I can wait." Jay, the gigolo, stood beside her, his face a mask of fawning adoration. "That's right, I want to get this done early too, so you can be happy, Mrs. Wang." This Jay was Mrs. Wang's newest toy. Handsome, with a silver tongue, he knew exactly how to please. However, in that one crucial aspect, Jay hadn't quite measured up to Mrs. Wang's expectations. So, she sought out my mother, readily paying a hefty sum to schedule his enhancement. My mother's reputation among the wealthy elite was legendary. It was said that anyone who underwent her procedures emerged nothing short of phenomenal. The only caveat was that no matter how much money these rich women offered, my mother steadfastly refused to take more than 10 cases a month. Most people believed it was simply her eccentric personality, her capricious way of doing business. But the truth was, it wasn't that she didn't want asterisk to take more. She simply asterisk couldn't asterisk. The fleshy pearls required for the surgeries were limited, only 10 appeared each month. As the surgery was about to begin, Mrs. Wang retreated to the VIP waiting room. My mother then instructed me to lead Jay into the operating room for preparation. It was surgery, after all, and Jay showed understandable signs of nervousness. He cautiously asked me, "Sister, what material is this made from?" Any man undergoing this kind of procedure knew perfectly well. Enhancements always involved adding something, and a degree of anxiety was only natural. "Don't worry, young man," my mother said, patting his shoulder with a sweet smile. "What we use are all advanced materials imported from Germany. There'll be no foreign body sensation. It will feel perfectly natural, comfortable, and safe as if it were always a part of you." I stood silently beside them, subtly touching my nose. My mother was lying. Those pearls were absolutely not imported from Germany. She retrieved them from a strange room, a chamber as dark as pitch. Our home, a small villa, sat right next to the clinic. On the 5th floor, there was a room secured with countless layers of chains and locks. Since childhood, my father had repeatedly warned us, my 2 siblings and me, never to go near that room. But curiosity, as it does with children, got the better of us. One day, when our parents were out, we secretly crept up to the 5th floor. We pressed ourselves against the door, peering through the crack, desperate to see what lay within. The moment we bent down, a thick, putrid stench overwhelmed us, making us cough and choke uncontrollably. When our parents returned, they caught us red-handed. We were beaten within an inch of our lives. It was the first time they had ever laid such heavy hands on my sister and brother. My brother, Ethan, received the worst of it. My parents doted on him, spoiling him rotten. Yet that day, even though he had only stood behind us, not even bending down or seeing anything, my father broke one of his legs. Ethan was bedridden for a month before his bones finally healed. From then on, none of us dared to approach that room again. But my curiosity was insatiable, and I often secretly observed my mother. I noticed that every day in the pre-dawn hours, she would take a small box, her brows tightly furrowed, and enter that small, dark, sealed room. Less than a minute later, she would emerge quickly, her furrowed brows now relaxed, as if a great burden had been lifted. And when she returned, the box she carried usually contained a large, flesh-colored pearl. Its entire surface was glistening, with murky, wet swirls exuding a foul, fishy odor. My sense of smell was more sensitive than others. Even a slight inhalation allowed me to detect it. These were the very pearls my mother used for male enhancements. because every man, after his surgery, would emit that same familiar, putrid smell. Hearing this, Jay seemed to relax. His flirtatious, peach blossom eyes intentionally sought to charm as he gently tugged my mother's arm. "So, sister, remember to be gentle with me, okay? Your little brother is very scared." From the moment Jay entered the room, I had noticed something amiss in my mother's expression. Her first glance was one of surprise, her second was fixed intently on him. Now there was an added layer of an unspoken, ambiguous understanding, but I wasn't surprised. The clinic welcomed so many men, he certainly wasn't the first, nor would he be the last, to harbor thoughts about my mother. She was truly captivating. Though clearly over 40, her skin remained plump, smooth, and wrinkle-free like a young woman's. Her translucent, rosy white complexion made her appear no older than 30. On my university graduation day, she attended the ceremony, earning countless admirers among my friends. "Oh my God, Amy, your sister is so beautiful. She could totally debut as an idol." Some male students even mistook her for a master's student, shyly approaching to ask for her WeChat. A few blurry side profile photos of her were posted on the university's social media for days. My mother's face truly seemed untouched by age, so youthful it could almost be described as uncanny. What was even more baffling was that she never took care of her skin, nor had she ever undergone any cosmetic surgery. I heard she didn't even use facial cleanser, only water. Occasionally, when she seemed a little fatigued, a single surgery at the clinic would revitalize her, making her glow as if she had absorbed some vital essence. I too had been curious, but every time she performed a surgery, my mother would lock the door tightly, allowing no one inside. Even the operating room door was specially bolted from within. Of course, I was no exception. After Jay signed the consent form, my mother wheeled the bed into the operating room. As the surgical light flickered on, the distinct click of the door being locked echoed, just like every surgery before it. I was about to turn and leave, perhaps to greet Mrs. Wang in the VIP waiting room, when my eyes inadvertently caught an unnoticed window in the corner of the wall. And through it, I could see directly into the operating room. I froze for a moment, remembering a few days prior. Due to the scorching summer heat, the window next to the operating room had been exposed to direct sunlight for too long and had suddenly cracked, creating a web of fissures. My mother had hired someone to replace all the glass panels in the operating room. It seemed the installer had accidentally installed a one-way mirror in that corner, window asterisk the wrong way around. Because of this, I could now see exactly what my mother was hiding inside the operating room. My palms grew sweaty. I licked my lips, cautiously taking small steps closer, my eyes wide and unblinking, peering intently into the operating room. I saw my mother in a white surgical gown, holding a syringe, administering anesthesia to the gigolo on the operating table. Anesthesia had to be injected with extreme precision. Too little wouldn't work, too much could cause severe nerve damage. She was an illiterate woman. Of course, she couldn't control the exact dosage. Therefore, what was in that syringe wasn't anesthetic at all, but a glucose solution to provide energy. As the glucose solution flowed from the syringe into Jay's body, a few minutes later, he drifted into a deep sleep, his consciousness slipping away. Glucose has no anesthetic properties. Precisely. The real anesthetic was in the glass of water my mother had poured for Jay just as she handed him the consent form to sign. It was laced with a high-dose sedative, capable of inducing a deep coma for 2 hours. My mother went to such elaborate lengths, all simply to conceal a truth. To conceal that the expert in male health, the highly skilled surgeon so renowned among the wealthy women, was in reality just a quack, someone who hadn't even finished elementary school. After Jay had fallen into a coma, my mother didn't immediately begin the surgery. I then watched as she took a flesh-colored pearl, emitting that strange, foul odor from the box. Every day, I would secretly peek from the staircase corner, catching a glimpse of her after she emerged from the dark room on the 5th floor. But this was the first time I had observed it so closely. It was enveloped in a glistening, smooth skin, within which an indistinct, translucent, viscous fluid seemed to pulsate. Its entire form was soft and round, covered by a sticky, clear, slimy layer. Beneath the murky, shiny flesh, something appeared to be slowly moving. I pressed my face against the one-way glass, my eyes wide, desperate to get a clearer look at its true form. My mother then lifted the fleshy pearl, turning her body slightly. And that turn perfectly blocked my view. I could no longer see the pearl, nor her hand movements, only her back and her busy hands working over the operating table. 10 minutes later, she stood up. The large fleshy pearl was gone from her hand. Jay's surgery was complete. Rows and rows of flesh pearls, smooth and perfectly spherical, some small, some large, were arranged in an orderly fashion, as if they had simply grown there. I suppressed the urge to scream, tearing my gaze away, tiptoeing, ready to slip away from the window. But in the next second, a scene in the operating room made my eyes widen in sheer terror. I saw my mother lift her white gown and climb onto the operating table. A scene of shocking intimacy unfolded within the sterile room, and my pupils trembled outside. A moment later, my mother's entranced expression suddenly froze. Her face darkened slightly, and her eyes lifted, staring directly at me, a sharp glint in their depths. Our eyes met. My back instantly drenched in cold sweat, I panicked and fled. Very quickly, I regained my composure. That window was a one-way mirror. From outside, one could see everything within, but from inside, it was just a flat, reflective surface. That meant she couldn't have seen me. I forced myself to appear calm, pretending as if nothing had happened. I brewed a pot of tea and, as if everything was normal, went to greet Mrs. Wang. Just as I reached the door, a fawning male voice drifted from within. "Mrs. Wang, just look at this project of mine. I guarantee you'll make a fortune." "Oh, it's my younger brother." Ethan Shen had arrived. He was arrogant and reckless, refusing to work after graduation, constantly pestering our parents to open his own company. As the only son, he had been spoiled since childhood. Initially, our parents gave him a lot of money to pursue his ventures freely. But within a short year, he had lost everything, even racking up huge debts for our parents to pay. Yet, he never gave up. "Just one more chance, I promise. This time, it's the Red Sea Project guaranteed profits." Our family had money, but we couldn't tolerate such a spendthrift, so they cut off his funds. Ethan Shen was conceited and self-righteous, always believing he was right, convinced our parents were old-fashioned and had no business acumen. So he took his dubious project and peddled it everywhere. "Mrs. Wang, trust me, this project has immense potential. It'll definitely quadruple your investment." He patiently pitched, but the woman before him showed absolutely no interest. Mrs. Wang, being clever, skillfully deflected, talking around the issue without mentioning investment once. Seeing me approach with the teapot, she used the excuse that the hot tea steam might ruin her makeup and retreated to the restroom to touch it up. Ethan Shen, realizing she had no intention of investing, was left alone with me in the sitting room. As usual, he unleashed his frustration on me. "It's all your fault, Amy. You didn't properly attend to CEO Wang that night. If you had been a little more accommodating, I would have had enough investment capital by now." My eyelashes trembled, but I said nothing, just listened in silence as his mouth spewed curses and insults. My hands clasped tightly behind my back, nails digging painfully into my palms. We were both our parents' children, yet even our names reflected the disparity in our lives. Yang Jiao meant eternal brilliance, while Dai in my name, Amy Shen, simply meant younger sister or junior. Strip away the sister, and I was just Dai, an unnoticed, insignificant existence. Thus, whenever my brother got into trouble, I was, of course, the one sacrificed. Because no one invested in his project, Ethan Shen sought out the wealthy and arrogant real estate tycoon, CEO Wang. CEO Wang was notoriously lecherous, his favorite being young, inexperienced girls. So Ethan played to his preferences. At CEO Wang's birthday party, he gave me a drugged drink, then delivered his own unconscious sister to the man's bed to curry favor. Afterward, when I tearfully confronted him, he scoffed with arrogant disdain, utterly fearless. "If you're brave enough, go make a big deal out of it. Let's see whose side mom and dad take in this house, their sons or yours. Amy, I advise you to be smart. Keep your mouth shut, pretend nothing happened. Only then can you live well in this family." He uttered such sickening words, each one dripping with sarcasm, piercing me to the bone. I was helpless, unable to resist. Our parents would always side with him, never caring about me. I had only one choice, to grit my teeth and endure. CEO Wang, a self-made man with a keen business eye, had promised investment, but in the end, he only symbolically invested a few 100,000 yuan, treating it as a mere tip. To Ethan Shen, this paltry sum was no more than alms to a beggar. With nowhere to vent his fury, he unleashed it all on me. He blamed me for not being wanton enough, for not feigning enthusiasm naturally, for being poor at pleasing men. Whenever his investments hit a snag, he would, just like now, dump all his anger onto me. He continued his verbal abuse until my mother's appearance finally silenced him. As she walked past, I noticed her complexion was rosy and vibrant, her aura overflowing with vitality. Behind her, the gigolo Jay emerged from the operating room, his lips pale. Mrs. Wang, hearing the commotion, rushed over, uninhibitedly caressing Jay, utterly delighted. "Oh my, Shumei, your craftsmanship truly never disappoints." Then, without even bothering to bid us farewell, she eagerly pulled Jay into her pagani and sped off. This was another major advantage of my mother's skill. No recovery time was needed after the surgery. They could be used immediately as desired. After Mrs. Wang left, my mother's gaze fell upon me. Her eyes narrowed, observing me with a deep, knowing expression. Just now, in the operating room, she couldn't possibly have seen me from the outside. So, that look must mean she knew about the one-way mirror being installed backward. My heart pounded with fear, but I forced a calm facade. Since childhood, she had warned us that curiosity could kill. Regarding the locked room in our house, regarding the secret of the enhancement surgeries, she had never uttered a single word, never revealed even the slightest hint. Her precious son, whom she had pampered and indulged to the extreme, had a leg brutally broken by her, all because of his curiosity. If she discovered that I had not only been spying but had also witnessed her scandalous affair, the outcome would be unthinkable. Unexpectedly, she merely gave me a cold glance and told me to call my eldest sister, Anna, to come home for dinner tonight. She stressed that Anna must come home after work tonight, as she had something important to discuss. Ethan Shen was suspicious. "Mom, what big news? Can't you tell us now?" She spoke with an air of absolute certainty. "Of course, it's a major matter concerning the very foundation of our family." That evening, our dining table was uncharacteristically full. As everyone finished their meal, my mother put down her chopsticks. "I've decided to hand over the clinic's business to Amy." The words hung in the air, instantly changing the expressions on everyone's faces. My father's eyes widened as if he wanted to speak, but he hesitated. My sister, Anna, remained silently, her gaze mournful. My brother, Ethan, jumped up and down in absolute indignation. "Mom, what are you crazy? The clinic is our family's entire fortune. You're not giving it to your only son, but to asterisk her? Amy is just like a maid in this house. What the hell does she know?" In this family, my existence was utterly disregarded. My father was heavily biased towards sons, only caring for boys. My older sister, Anna, was beautiful, resembling my mother, so she received more affection. I, however, had an ordinary appearance, bearing a striking resemblance to my paternal grandmother. My mother disliked this difficult mother-in-law, and my father resented his unfair birth mother. So, they both projected all their anger and resentment towards my grandmother onto me. They felt no love for me, only saw me as someone to command. Because of the secret of the 5th floor, it was inconvenient to hire household help, so I was burdened with all the chores, cooking 3 meals a day. My brother, Ethan Shen, loved making my life difficult. He would deliberately dirty the clean floors and make me get on my knees to scrub them. Every winter, he even made me wash his clothes by hand. My mother, Lin Shumei, was physically weak and anemic and always found fault. She once smashed 5 bowls of blood tonifying soup I cooked, simply because she didn't like the taste. My father, Shen Jian Wen, suffered from a hyperarousal disorder. Anything displeasing would result in him physically lashing out at me, kicking and punching to vent his anger. Therefore, I had never once imagined my mother would entrust the family's most profitable asset, the clinic, to me. Hearing Ethan Shen's dissatisfied questions, my mother's face darkened, her tone stern. "You unfilial child, what are you yelling about, showing no respect? Whatever business you want to pursue outside, I won't interfere. But as for the clinic, don't even dream of touching it your entire life. Remember, today is an announcement, not a discussion." Her final sentence wasn't just for my brother, it was for everyone. And so, the rare family gathering, meant to be harmonious, ended in silent resentment, shattered by my mother's declaration. That night, I heard my parents arguing upstairs. My bedroom was on the 2nd floor, and theirs was on the 3rd. Their marriage was far from happy. They treated each other with cold indifference, and it was rare to hear any commotion from them. I vaguely caught a few fragmented sentences. "So, you're not going to do it anymore after this month, huh?" My father's voice was strained, laced with suppressed anger. "If we keep going, what if something happens? We'll all be ruined." My mother's voice rose, shrill and piercing. "What are you yelling about? Wasn't opening the clinic asterisk your asterisk idea? Now you're saying we should just stop? If we don't, who will support this family?" She paused, then continued with unwavering confidence. "Besides, if anyone's to blame, it's those weak-minded people. What does it have to do with us?" Then came a heavy sigh. The upstairs returned to its usual silence. I pondered their conversation, a sense of foreboding stirring within me. Before I could delve deeper into my thoughts, a knock came at my door. My voice trembled as I asked, "Who is it?" A voice, deliberately lowered, replied from outside, "Amy, it's me, your sister, Anna Shen." She was the only one in the family who treated me with a semblance of empathy and pity. However, people are inherently self-interested. She wouldn't actively harm me, but she wouldn't necessarily help me in distress either. Several years ago, after a major conflict with our parents, she moved out and rarely came home. Even on the rare occasions she visited, she never stayed overnight. Tonight, however, she had uncharacteristically chosen to stay. She stepped in, glancing cautiously around the room, then firmly shut the window. Taking my hand, her eyes filled with worry. "Amy, whatever you do, do not take over this clinic." She continued, "We both know how our parents usually spoil Ethan. If the clinic's business was truly a golden goose, it would never fall to you. If you take it on, you might just bring disaster upon yourself." Her face was etched with anxiety as she pleaded with me. Of course, I knew her words held truth. The locked dark room, the strange fleshy pearls, the bizarre surgical methods, and my mother's unnervingly ageless appearance, all of it was utterly illogical. Behind these things, a terrifying secret surely lurked. Yet I deliberately feigned eagerness, even a hint of anticipation. Because as she pleaded with me, her gaze had wandered, as if she wanted to say something more but hesitated. Finally, after a long conversation, seeing she couldn't dissuade me, she sighed in resignation. Our eyes met. "Do you remember my old boyfriend who disappeared a long time ago?" A handsome, striking face vaguely formed in my mind. He had been my sister's boyfriend during her second year of university. Anna had been very serious about that relationship, even showing his photos to the whole family. But then, one day, he vanished as if he had evaporated into thin air, leaving no trace. "He's dead," my sister said, her gaze distant. "Mom operated on him, and less than 2 months later, he died an unnatural death." Anna explained that when her ex-boyfriend disappeared that year, she searched for him tirelessly, but eventually gave up when her efforts yielded no results. However, a few years ago, she had accidentally stumbled upon our clinic's surgical registry book. My mother consistently took precisely 10 cases each month, no more, no less, but in that registry book, one particular month only listed 7 cases. And the final surgery for that month was performed on none other than my sister's ex-boyfriend. Anna didn't know why he underwent the surgery, but after it, he vanished. My sister recounted how, 2 months later, her ex-boyfriend died mysteriously. It was said that at the time of his death, his entire body was bruised, his vitality seemingly drained, and his face was eerily pale. His family, without much explanation, quickly buried him with little ceremony. After that, Anna investigated the men who had undergone surgery with my mother in recent years. Without exception, every single one of them either disappeared into obscurity or suffered from mental instability, eventually succumbing to despair and committing suicide. My sister sighed helplessly, then offered me a final piece of advice. "Amy, I can only tell you this much. How you act is your decision." After she left, I lay on my bed, my thoughts in turmoil. Actually, I had a secret of my own that I had kept from her. I had known about her ex-boyfriend's death long ago. More than that, I knew the cause. How many normal men came to our family clinic for surgery? They were either gigolos brought by wealthy women or gigolos seeking to latch onto wealthy women. My sister's boyfriend fell into the latter category. Men like them were mere playthings in the eyes of these rich women. In their hearts, resentment and unwillingness were inevitable. Thus, they sought to reclaim their sense of male control from innocent, inexperienced university girls. That year, one of my mother's frequent wealthy clients brought him to the clinic. Seeing a face identical to the man in the photo her daughter proudly showed off as her boyfriend, the client immediately understood that my sister was merely a tool used to assert control. Fearing my sister's heartbreak, My mother had forced me to keep silent about the secret. Later, I heard the young man had died, reportedly because the wealthy client had grown tired of him. But ultimately, this was not a glorious affair, so the wealthy client paid a large sum to silence his family. His family took the money and hastily buried him. That was the end of it. As for the second thing my sister mentioned, it truly struck a chord with me. The clinic had many wealthy women as long-standing clients. The gigolos accompanying them often changed every 2 years. Previously, I had simply thought it was a case of out with the old, in with the new, but today, it certainly seemed like something more sinister was at play. These past events made my mind increasingly muddled. Eventually, I drifted off to sleep, unknowingly. That night, I had a dream. I dreamt I was back outside the operating room window. Inside, the scene was elegant, the figures of 2 people intertwining. The woman, lying atop the man, suddenly lifted her head, looked at me, and smiled. I was instantly terrified, breaking out in a cold sweat, and jolted awake. Because the woman's face in the dream wasn't my mother's, it had transformed into my own asterisk. Before I could shake off the horror, my mother's furious scolding and banging on my door erupted from outside. "Are you out of your mind? What time is it, and you're still not up? Didn't I tell you yesterday that you need to wake up early today to go to the 5th floor? If you don't want to take over the clinic, then pack your bags and get out of my house." After announcing her intention to hand over the clinic to me, she had told me to accompany her to the dark room on the 5th floor the next morning. But last night, I had slept like the dead, missing my alarm. Filled with dread, I cautiously pushed open the door. The moment it opened, a stinging slap landed squarely on my face. "You disobedient child, follow me upstairs now?" My mother glared at me impatiently. Except for my sister, they were all the same. Any displeasure was instantly vented on me. Covering half my face, I softly replied, "Yes." Obediently, I followed her up to the 5th floor. I slept on the 2nd floor, and with each step we took, the foul, fishy smell grew increasingly stronger. This familiar stench emanated from that locked, secret dark room, but I noticed something peculiar about this smell. It was distinctly more pungent today than usual. And when we reached the 5th floor, the sight before us startled both my mother and me. The numerous layers of locks and chains outside the dark room had been cut into pieces. The door was ajar, the crack showing signs of forced entry. On the ground lay a pair of bolt cutters and a hammer. My mother's face went ashen, her hands trembling as she opened the surveillance video saved on her phone. Ever since my siblings and I had secretly peeked through the dark room's door as children, my father had installed cameras on every floor. My mother gripped her phone, her eyes fixed on the screen. She saw that last night, in the dead of night, my brother Ethan had secretly climbed to the 5th floor. He held the bolt cutters, severing all the locks and chains, only to discover an electronic lock further inside. Losing patience, he raised the hammer and smashed it against the doorframe. With such brutal force, the sturdy door was finally broken open. The hammer fell with a loud clang, but no one in the house heard it. They were all sleeping like the dead. It seemed he had deliberately tampered with something. In Ethan Shen's eyes, this room held the secret to our family's fortune. He always felt that as the only son of the Shen family, everything, without question, would belong to him in the future. He never imagined that our own mother would hand over the most profitable asset, the clinic, to me, the least loved child in the house. Perhaps he couldn't swallow his indignation, which led him to try and seize the room's secret for himself. My mother likely thought the same. "Go quickly to Madame Hong's hair salon and get her here immediately." Her hand trembled as she clutched mine, maintaining a semblance of calm amidst her panic. "Remember, no matter the cost, you must bring her here." I frowned, my face etched with confusion. The owner of the old alley hair salon was known by everyone as Madame Hong. Everyone around knew that, officially, it was a hair salon, but she was actually in the business of flesh trade. The surveillance video showed my brother entering the dark room, but never exiting. The first thing my mother did wasn't to check on her precious son. Instead, she was in a frantic rush, telling me to find a prostitute. This action was truly unfathomable. I dared not ask more questions, so I quickly ran downstairs to find Madame Hong. On the way, I encountered a strange woman. She was dressed in wrinkled Taoist robes, her eyes fixed on me. The corners of her mouth held a fleeting, enigmatic smile. I vaguely heard her say to me, I can help you. But when I rounded the corner and looked back, she was gone. My heart pounded with fear, and I quickened my pace, hurrying into Madame Hong's shop. After I brought Madame Hong home, my entire family was anxiously waiting for me on the 5th floor. Seeing Madame Hong, my mother wasted no words, pushing her into the room. "What the hell? Are you crazy? Why are you dragging me like this?" Madame Hong shrieked, her voice sharp with displeasure. "If your family hadn't offered so much money, I wouldn't be here this early in the morning." My mother's hands clenched, veins protruding. "Don't talk so much. Another 10,000 yuan for you." With swift, almost desperate movements, she pushed the half-open door, shoving Madame Hong inside, then quickly slammed it shut, as if afraid of something. Naturally, Madame Hong was furious after such treatment. Inside the room, her loud curses continued incessantly. "You crazy old woman, why are you locking me in here? It's pitch black, I can't see a damn thing, and what's that horrible smell? Are you raising dead fish in here? Why is it so filthy? You people are all insane, your whole family is crazy." After a brief silence, a blood-curdling scream suddenly echoed from within the room. All we heard was someone inside shrieking, "Dead, it's dead." Hearing this, my mother snapped like a taut string breaking. In that instant, she lost all reason, disregarding everything. She flung the door open wide and rushed inside. As the light from outside streamed in, I finally saw everything clearly inside the room. Madame Hong had fainted from terror. Ethan Shen lay almost naked on the ground, his clothes scattered around him. The room was empty, devoid of any decoration, save for a single table, almost like an altar. On this square altar table, something utterly indescribable was being kept, a pale, translucent piece of flesh. The entire mass writhed and pulsated as if it were a living, breathing entity. And at its reproductive organ, there was a sticky, viscous pearl, that very strange, fleshy pearl my mother used for her surgeries. That day, my brother was rushed to the hospital by ambulance. The good news, he wasn't dead. The bad news, he was in a vegetative state. The hospital performed a full examination but found nothing wrong. He simply remained unconscious like a plant. My father exhausted all his connections, bringing in renowned doctors to examine him, but to no avail, no illness could be identified. My father was distraught, lashing out furiously at my mother, Lin Shu-mei. "This is all your goddamn fault. If you had just stopped this immoral business earlier, he wouldn't be lying on that bed, barely clinging to life." My mother gritted her teeth, her eyes cold as she stared at him. "Shen Jianwen, you incompetent fool, you're twisting the truth. You were the one who brought this thing home in the first place, and you were the one who wanted to open the clinic. Haven't we been earning money to support this whole family for years? Would you have the good life you have today otherwise?" As they stood poised for battle, hating each other so much they seemed ready to tear each other apart, an uninvited guest appeared in my brother's hospital room. She claimed she had a way to save my brother, but the price was a life for a life. I looked up, and my eyes met a familiar face. It was the strange Taoist woman from that day. She smiled faintly at my parents, a smile that wasn't quite a smile. "You've earned so much money by relying on this evil artifact. Perhaps it's time to return it to its rightful owner?" My father's face suddenly contorted in panic, as if remembering something. It was on that very day that I finally learned the truth. 10 years ago, my parents were just ordinary farmers in the countryside. One day, my father unexpectedly found a strange object by the lake. It looked like a transparent piece of flesh and emitted a faint, fishy smell. He found it odd, yet remarkably similar to the taishui that the village elders spoke of, and he was overjoyed, taking it home to nurture. But the more he kept it, the more something felt wrong. Its fishy scent seemed to have an aphrodisiac effect. Any man who smelled it would become uncontrollably aroused, driven to seek out a woman for release. Similarly, my parents grew increasingly intimate, and the more they indulged, the stronger the fleshy object's stench became. Eventually, it even began to produce strange, fleshy pearls. By sheer coincidence, they discovered that these fleshy pearls contained a sticky, pulsating fluid. If used by men, it would make them incredibly potent, thereby attracting even more women. This extraordinary power, they realized, must stem from these peculiar fleshy pearls. Instead of fear, they saw opportunity. My father even suggested using it to start a business and make money. The fishy smell had no effect on women, so my parents divided the labor. My mother was in charge of collecting the fleshy pearls for surgery, while my father was responsible for attracting clients. Unexpectedly, their business boomed, and money poured in like water. Until a mysterious old Taoist master arrived at their doorstep, inquiring about this strange piece of flesh. He explained that it was a masculine Yang Taishui, thriving on human desire, an evil artifact that absolutely must not be kept. Although my father was inwardly frightened, his greed took over. He spoke ungratefully, even scolding and driving the old Taoist master away. The old master, shaking his head helplessly, simply said, "We shall meet again someday," before waving his hand and departing. Years passed, and my father gradually noticed something abnormal in his body. He discovered that once a man stopped using these fleshy pearls, he would lose the ability to father children. Not only that, but over time, his body would even waste away until he was completely incapacitated. As he grew older, the odor emitted by the flesh became increasingly pungent. The pearl's effect on humans intensified, but its lifespan diminished. Initially, it was 6 years, then 4, and now it was less than 2. For a man, that was more important than anything else. A man who underwent the surgery would become utterly useless, naturally vanishing from their social circles. Those who couldn't bear it would sink into depression, suffer mental breakdowns, and eventually take their own lives. As for the women who interacted with these men, they would become addicted. This was exactly why my sister's ex-boyfriend died so quickly. My mother had worried that after his surgery, he might harm my sister. So, during the procedure, she had implanted 3 pearls into him. She originally thought that increasing the dosage would cause him to wither away faster, turning him into a cripple. She never expected he couldn't endure it, dying an unnatural death just 2 months later. With so many lives accumulating, my father grew fearful. But his obsession with wealth and luxury prevented him from closing the clinic. Then, he came up with a seemingly perfect solution for both of them: to hand over the clinic to me so I could earn money in her place. If anything went wrong, the blame would fall on me, the least loved daughter in the family. More than a decade had passed, and my father never expected that the old Taoist master's words that they would meet again someday would actually come true. And this female Taoist priest, named Master Yu, was the disciple of that old master. The masculine Yang Taishui, the closer one gets to it, the more chaotic its yang energy becomes, and the foul smell it emits is a demon poison, Master Yu explained. Your son inhaled a large amount of this demon poison and it wasn't purged in time, which is why he's in a coma and cannot wake up. The female Taoist priest smiled faintly at my parents. But rest assured, there is a way to save him. You only need to exchange a life for a life, to trade the masculine Yang Taishui itself. My father didn't hesitate, agreeing immediately without a second thought. For many years, he had secretly detested this evil artifact. He hated that this toy had made him less than a man, neither truly male nor female. He hated that it had driven his wife to seek satisfaction elsewhere, making him a cuckold countless times. And he hated that this toy had harmed his only son, leaving him a half-dead vegetable. My mother, however, hesitated, torn. Although she favored sons, she loved herself even more. She was originally just an ordinary, illiterate rural woman, toiling tirelessly, resigned to the short, impoverished lives of those around her. But the appearance of the masculine Yang Taishui had completely transformed her life. Luxurious living, endless wealth, boundless carnal pleasure, and a captivating appearance that defied aging. She couldn't bear to, wouldn't let go of any of it. Not even if the price was her own son's life. The masculine Yang Taishui was an evil artifact, yet it possessed a spirit. It produced pearls, absorbing male and female desires to sustain itself. After a woman became intimately involved with a man who had used these pearls, her face would radiate, appearing younger, pushing back the signs of aging. The more she interacted with such men, the more she could even preserve her eternal youth. My mother had experienced this the most, and thus provided the most nourishment of desire to the masculine Yang Taishui. Every day, she revered it as she collected the pearls, and it had long since regarded her as its primary caretaker. Unless the caretaker willingly consented, no one could take it away. Master Yu gave my family 3 days to think. No matter what, my mother adamantly refused to surrender the masculine Yang Taishui. Who knows if this woman is telling the truth or lying? She raged. I don't believe that only she can cure Ethan's illness. My mother's eyes widened, her temperament growing increasingly frantic. I heard there's an exorcist in the countryside, skilled in magic, who can exchange lives. We'll take her." She swung her head to look at me, as if she had found a scapegoat. "That's right, we'll take her asterisk to exchange for Ethan's life." My heart trembled, and I suddenly felt suffocated. My eyes, empty and wide, filled with tears. "Look at this. Even your own mother believes it's only natural for you to be sacrificed for your brother." My mother's face was ferocious, her eyes menacing, as if she wanted to devour me alive. I noticed my father beside her, his eyes bulging, veins throbbing. His suppressed anger and hatred were on the verge of erupting. I wiped away my tears, saying nothing, and went to my room. "Mother, if a life must be exchanged for a life, then take yours." It was true that no one could take the masculine Yang Taishui without the caretaker's consent. But what if the caretaker was no longer alive? My mother was weak and anemic. Every day she had to drink a bowl of blood-tonifying herbal medicine. But ever since my brother's accident, she had been too distraught to drink her blood tonic. If by misfortune, her frail body were to fall and lose a lot of blood, she would truly lose her life. My father, due to the long-term effects of using these pearls, had developed a hyperarousal disorder, for which he had to take medication daily. Not long ago, I carefully mixed his functional supplements into his disorder medication. Now, with just a slight trigger, my father would lose control, his manic disorder erupting. And I had just accidentally sent him a photo. This photo was taken by me from outside the one-way glass door of the operating room. A scene of erotic intimacy, with my mother's expression utterly lost in pleasure. Oh, right, my father probably also had his favorite golf club next to him right now. Made of aluminum alloy, it inflicted excruciating pain. A few years ago, when his manic disorder flared up, he had used it to beat me, simply because I poured him a glass of water that was too hot. The pain had been bone deep. I bled profusely, my entire being torn apart. I locked my bedroom door, remaining silent within. All I heard was the man upstairs erupting in a fit of uncontrollable rage, like a wild beast. He roared curses at the woman, calling her selfish, extravagant, and promiscuous. Then, from upstairs, came the wife's agonizing screams and sobs. I remained in my room, expressionless, putting on my headphones. A few days later, a headline blared across the front page: "Wealthy man kills wife." According to the news, the man, suffering from manic disorder, couldn't tolerate his wife's infidelity and savagely beat her head and body with a golf club dozens of times, leading to her going into shock and dying from massive blood loss. The in-home surveillance video served as evidence. The man involved in the case had been apprehended by the police. My mother was dead. The masculine Yang Taishui, now without a caretaker, was taken away by Master Yu. She said she would intensify its seal, preventing it from ever harming people again. Before leaving, she curved her lips, extending her hand towards me. "Amy, it was a pleasure working with you." I looked up, took her hand, and smiled. On the day Ethan Shen's accident happened, when I was on my way to find Madame Hong, Master Yu and I met for the first time and made a deal. I would help her acquire the masculine Yang Taishui, and she would help me with a lie. To resolve the demon poison in my brother, all it really needed was a dose of yin-based traditional Chinese medicine. But I used her words to sever Ethan Shen's fate. When he eventually awoke and saw the news of the wealthy man killing his wife, his spirits shattered. He lunged at me, grabbing my hair and hitting me, screaming, "Amy, it was you. You instigated me to go up to the 5th floor and break that door." But he suddenly fell silent because, during our struggle, I intentionally pulled down his pants. In front of a crowd of people, he was exposed, revealing the neither male nor female state of his lower body. I smiled coldly, a smile filled with deep-seated hatred. That day, he had treated me as a mere tool to be pushed into another man's bed. I had sworn I would make him pay dearly. From then on, unable to accept the truth, he spiraled into madness. Eventually, it was only natural for me to commit him to a mental hospital. When I visited my father in prison, I told him, "Father, your precious son, just like you, is a useless man, neither male nor female." He saw my suffering as if he finally understood something. Through the iron bars of the window, he glared, his eyes wide with rage. "You want to kill me? Kill me?" I narrowed my eyes, tilting my head. "Have you forgotten, Father? You've already been sentenced. It's capital punishment." After that, my father died, and Ethan Shen went completely insane. My sister and I divided the family assets, and I received tens of millions. I took this money and invested it in numerous projects. Within a few years, my earnings multiplied. After achieving financial freedom, many gigolos actively sought me out, hoping to latch onto my wealth. One day, as I was walking with a gigolo, I once again caught that familiar, foul stench. When I arrived at the beauty clinic I frequented and saw the lead doctor holding the scalpel, I suddenly recognized the figure. It was Master Yu, no longer in her wrinkled Taoist robes. Now, she was dressed head to toe in expensive designer clothes. Her lips curled into a triumphant smile. At that moment, she seemed to have become the second Lin Shumei.